We back. This off the bench global. I'm Curtis Taylor.
David B.
Tyrell Coach Anderson.
We are back. I think it's very important for us to go back and communicate about value. Um, it's it's been a heavy week communication with a lot of military things that's happening.
Right.
Wow.
Shouts out to our military, man.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely. Definitely. I'm trying to get my thoughts together, because I just actually got off the phone with Erwin Howard. That's my guy. 17 years military. He's
Right.
in Oklahoma, Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Right.
17 years military.
Mhm.
That's my guy, man.
Okay.
So, we really, 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 love our military families.
Right.
Man, I can't even imagine. My two daughters, I love my daughters. Those are my babies.
Mhm.
Coming up, I had what was it, 5, 6 years old. Um, Mama was away, so I had to do a ponytail.
Okay.
I had to do
Right.
a ponytail for the daughters.
Right.
So I'm thinking, I got it. I'm jail,
Right.
all of that.
Right. Working it out.
Working it out. I took them to the camp, so they had to grab my wrist because my hands were so oily. So I took them to the camp, and the camp counselor said, "Oh," I'm thinking that I'm in the game.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Oh, y'all mama wasn't home."
Oh man.
Yeah.
So that was them being little.
Right.
As they got older, I actually took them to art school.
Right.
Here recently.
Mm-hmm.
These are my daughters now. These are my babies.
Mm-hmm.
So I walked them into art class, and they simultaneously turned around, looked at me, and said, "Daddy, you don't have to walk with us no more." My mouth was stuck open. I was just like gone.
Right.
My babies are getting older. They're growing up.
Right.
So I can't imagine
Right.
the military, how they're feeling.
Yeah.
Not only leaving their families.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't imagine.
Well, I tell you, man, and we touched on it a little bit briefly, and again, thank you again, David. We can't thank you enough for your tours that you, definitely want you to expound on your experiences, and we, we come up with this thing, and it's twofold. Sometimes it's tenfold, because you don't know what kind of, thing you have, influence you have, over certain people. And obviously, your immediate family is major.
Definitely.
So you're dealing with two things. This podcast here, Off the Bench, mental health is so broad.
Yes, it is.
And certain times you're in certain situations that your mental state is not where it needs to be. So you have the actual separation of time, not knowing when, and then you actually have the actual, soldier, to go. Their mindset of what you have to get in go mode and get ready and so on and so forth. So it's one of those things, but definitely to piggyback over what you're saying, Kurt, I wanted to talk with David a little bit about and just throw some things. We're going to defer to you a little bit today, bro.
No doubt.
Hang with us and so on. We'll try to help you along the way because you've experienced, so you have the authority on this thing.
One thing, man, that I'll touch on real quick is, deployments and the military really didn't affect me. And I think this happens to everybody. You're not affected by it until you're actually doing it or someone.
Right.
I can remember as a child growing up, and around that time, Desert Storm. That was the first invasion.
Right.
And you hear about people saying, "Oh, they're going to Desert Storm or Desert Shield." It really didn't. It was over my head. I'm like, okay, they're going off to war. That's the end of it.
Right.
But it's kind of it's like when you're in it, then it's a totally different mind frame that you have because you're actually in it. You know what I'm saying? Even from the standpoint of being a soldier, being in it, or being a family member and being in it. I can remember 2001, I was at my girlfriend's house watching TV, watching the bombs hit Baghdad, and my brother calling me saying, I got to leave in 36 hours.
Wow.
And I'm like,
wow.
What?
Right.
You know, so then it actually hit me. It's like, wow, you know, and I think for a lot of people, especially Americans, they don't really understand like what military spouses go through, military soldiers go through, because they haven't experienced it. And you know, it's hopefully, you know, what we talk about here today kind of give them some insight into what kind of goes on. Because, you know, when we were talking about this, I was just even thinking about, because I actually went up to Fayetteville the first podcast that Monday. I had some friends that are still in the 82nd, and you know they got the call.
Yeah, hey, shouts out to the 82nd.
Yeah, shouts out, man, all the way. So they got that call, man, trying to, you know, it's time to go. You know what I'm saying? So it's different, man. It's a different lifestyle. It's something that you you know what I'm saying, you really never get used to.
Right. And that's the thing. Like again, shout out to my coach, Greg Blakely. Man, when you experience someone that they come off to you as a strong guy, and not saying that he's not strong now.
Right.
Man, to seeing your child or to see your child, you know, go away. You know, what can you say? You know? Wow.
Right.
That's all I can say.
Right.
You know?
Wow. I tell you, man. You know, we talk about the adult side of it. You know, sometimes we have mechanisms and way in which we can cope.
Right.
And the difficult thing happens when we talked about. just made a little segue, a little thing about your daughters and the kids. You know, there's a condition called separation anxiety.
Right.
That people will feel almost instantly. Right. When they know sometimes like these things aren't planned. They have made plans for that weekend, and it's like all of a sudden 36 hours you got to get ready to roll.
Right.
And that aspect, that thing that kids have to feel, and you know, we have to make sure that there's always an outlet, and people know from the schools, community. Again, we talked about in the last episode, community, but the schools need to know. Let me ask you this: is there something that you may have felt that your kids might have needed counseling in some kind of way, or?
I think it do, and I think the reason that the ball gets dropped, man, is because like only 1% of the total population of the United States has ever served in the military.
Right.
So that's a very small percentage of people that actually deal with this.
Right.
It's a community, but it's a very small community.
Yeah. So it's easy for it to get lost.
Right. You understand what I'm saying?
For it to get pushed aside.
You know, where you might go to a school. Prime example is this, like, okay, if when I was stationed at Fort Bragg, where you have Fayetteville, you know, of course, soldiers live in Fayetteville, and you have Hope Mills, you have Rayford, but then you might have some soldiers that live a little bit further out in Raleigh, and you know, in a you know, maybe 45 minutes away. So if their father gets deployed, that child kind of gets lost because he's at a school that's, you know, 45 minutes away. The probability of another child being in his classroom dealing with the same thing that he or she is dealing with is very, very slim. You know what I'm saying? So, and I don't even really think they have things in place in school to kind of really help kids with that separation. You know, because they don't understand.
That's right.
It's just like when I left out today, because you know, at my house everybody sleep. You know, at 8:30 we shutting it down. And so my oldest son, he came downstairs. He was like, Dad, where you going? I'm like, boy, go upstairs. You know what I'm saying? I'm coming back, you know, because they're so used to, it's like, you know, they see me getting ready to go and they know, you know, they're still, even you know, that I'm not in the military, or they're still in that frame of mind. It's been conditioned, like it doesn't go away. That's another one of the things that I wanted to kind of touch on, where we can get in later. It's like, you know, they train you to go to war. They train you to fight. But when you come back, you got to figure out how to turn that off.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Ingratiate yourself back into society.
And that's the thing. Like when I was in Fayetteville State, I was feeling like I was in the military.
Right.
I was feeling like I was in the military because of the soldiers are trained a certain way, and then they come home. You know, they got a pocket.
Oh, because you're talking about it's what Fort Bragg is, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right there.
Yes. So you're talking about trained to do whatever.
Right.
With a pocket full of money.
Right.
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 Problem. Yeah, I've been there.
That's a problem.
So, yeah.
That's a problem.
Yes.
And that's the thing. Like when we talk about, my coach, Greg Blakeney, I met him, in my early years. I was a young guy, and I still call him coach today.
Right.
He's a great man, and I can't imagine. I can't imagine to really just see the emotion of him, how he was impactful to me.
Right.
Just imagine his child.
Right.
I know he look at me like his son.
Yeah,
but it's different.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Well, both of you. I mean, I'm assuming the other things that we experience with that trauma. Right. Whether it be separation, then the trauma you actually experience when you are deployed. Right. You come back home, there's a lot of liquid debriefing going on. Right. Other substances to do to cope. And that's the one thing that we wanted in this podcast is to start giving resources to some folks and just giving information on where you can actually seek help and so on, because those vices that sometimes soldiers or people who have been deployed and just people in the military, they have to struggle with, or they do struggle with. And like you said, they come back and they got some money, they got opportunities, they got situations. Depends on what they have going on in their life. They become subject to substance abuse. We see a lot of homelessness and so on. And so there's clearly things that's going on mentally with people who come home from the military. And it just seems that we haven't, collective community, country, government, haven't really got a handle on it. I don't know how or what way to begin to speak on how do we actually address that problem. It's just as an epidemic to me. And it's, as any other.
And that's the thing with this podcast. We focus on the kids, but we also focus on the parents.
Right.
The parents are the teachers to the child.
Right.
So we actually have to trust the transfer.
Right.
And what I mean by that is when, like I told you, like Greg, for instance, Greg, he coached me when I was in the 8th grade.
Right.
He was an impact.
Right.
I still call him coach today.
Right.
I call him coach because he trusts the transfer. What he instilled in me, what he poured into me.
Right.
I still walk that way now.
Right.
And that's what I got to do for my daughters. When they turned to me and said, "Daddy, we got it."
Right.
I have to trust the transfer.
I trust it. Yeah.
I gotta really trust it, and not saying it's easy.
Right.
But at the same time, these fathers and these mothers that's coming together for this child, and that's what we actually that's what we hop on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we want to act as if we have everything under control in life and we know what goes on, but things happen so abruptly. Things happen without warning. And we have to make adjustments, and again, to stay right where we are in the military, that's part of. You may have a plan.
That's right.
And myself being in the fire department and seeing some things, when you have a traumatic experience, nothing is planned.
Right.
You don't really, can't really plan for that. You can, even if you think you get a heads up, you get a plan of action on how to deal with things, but when things actually happen, there's an adjustment period in the mind.
Right.
In the mind that sometimes it's just hard for others to let go.
Right.
Or leave it where it needs to be. Now, the greatest thing is that I've witnessed some people even throughout my career, and I'm sure you have, Dave, and I'm sure Kurt, and things that you've done too. You watch people perform at a high level when it was necessary, and but even in performing what you're doing, you're soaking all of that in, and it's difficult for people in the military to decompress out of that.
Right.
Constant trauma. That feeling. And we're talking about this because of the rise, escalation in Iraq.
Yes.
I have a nephew that's over in Qatar.
Okay.
And serving. Shouts out to my nephew Sean. And right now he's doing well. And all is well, but you never know what could happen,
right?
You know, because the military, when he's talking about escalation, everything is unpredictable.
Everything, and it's what I and I didn't even realize what I was doing to myself, but you're kind of trained to do it. Being in the military, like if you get hurt, not necessarily downrange or in war, but just on base or something, they kind of frown upon you going to sick call to get seen about yourself, and so it's kind of I can remember being on deployments and I mean witnessing some crazy stuff, and I would just talk to my wife or my brother or my father like everything was fine.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And because I didn't want them to know what was going on with me. Like they're already worried. So I didn't want to place that burden of what I'm experiencing on them.
Absolutely.
And so what I kind of trained myself unknowingly and kind of, hurt me in a way is that I kind of, when it came to talking about things with them, I never would. It's just like I literally like about 2 years ago after I started going seeing a psychiatrist at the VA, I just started telling my family about some of the things that happened to me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So with you saying that, how do you going to see a psychiatrist? You don't frown upon that.
No, I mean, a lot of soldiers don't do it because they use, like Coach said, other coping mechanisms to deal with it, and like a lot of soldiers, honestly, like people think that when you get out the military that there's all this information that you have, and I'm gonna be honest with you, a lot of the things that I found out about getting help and things that were due to me was through word of mouth. Through somebody else telling me. It wasn't like I was able to go. Now, don't get me wrong. The information is out there. You just have to find it or know somebody that has the information that can share it with you to help you.
Let me ask you this, because part of my upbringing, from where I come from to a degree, and then also with me being in the fire department, and I'll just say males, I'm going to get on ethnicity or whatever, or race, but, privy to some of the males I've been around, there's always a machismo. There's always a, you got to handle the thing. Don't let the people see you cry. All that stuff that you're kind of bombarded with. And there's a stigma on it. And then you get into that thing. Nah, I can handle it. Or you finally talk with some people that who are dealing with the same things or whatever. And you almost become desensitized to just some regular, basic, and normal things when you come back home. And you don't seek the help because of that machismo that you've been conditioned. And that stigma that you don't want to be placed possibly on you. That fear of maybe discovery of what's going on for that particular time. And we all understand that it's temporary, but I just wanted to ask the both of you if you ever experienced anything, and I would definitely share mine after I hear you guys about how, we are as a community reluctant to go and get help or just to talk to someone.
And this is a true story. It was an article, and I actually knew the soldier. I was in a unit with his wife. Then I was actually in one of the units that he was in. But he got hurt in Iraq really, really bad. Got blown up. And after that, he just never was the same. And so still at Fort Bragg, lots of DUIs, getting in lots of fights, going to bars and things like that. And finally, it was actually the judge that kept locking him up.
Wow.
The judge said, something is missing. Like there's a disconnect. And so the judge, what the judge did, man, this is an article in the Fayetteville Observer. The judge went and sat in the cell with him until they figured it out, man. And they were both in there for like almost 36 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So like that's one of the reasons why, like, people, when I finished up, they're like, well, why didn't you go back home? I'm like, no, I wanna stay in North Carolina. Like, North Carolina is, well, Texas, Fort Hood is probably the biggest military installation, and Fort Bragg being the second. And as far as military personnel that are like actually in states, North Carolina like is like in the top 5 of active military personnel actually in the state as well as veterans. It's like it's in the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to stay around that community and those people because we understand each other. We understand what you've you've gone through. I can, there's been times where I've been at the VA and a soldier come in and he's not getting the medicine that he think he should get, and you should see the soldiers that are coming. We'll just talk each other down out of situations because that's what we've been trained to do. Kind of have each other's back. So I think if community would transfer that onto soldiers as well. If you see a veteran, don't just give him a handout because there's things that'll do to him that'll take care of him. Like find out what the real root problem is. Like find out what's really bothering him. What's what was so traumatic that it changed his life to the point to where he's perfectly fine with just walking aimlessly every day.
And that's to that point, Dave. So many people call me, and friends know that I move silently. I don't make a big hoorah about.
Kurt, you 6'5". How you move silently? I move silently.
I move. Look.
Sasquatch.
Yeah. So I move silently. If I get a call, a friend of mine called me. And a lot of times I beat him to his house because if he called me and said, Curtis, I need to see you.
Right.
I don't text him.
Right.
I go see him.
Right.
Man to man, what's going on?
Right. Thank goodness you're not 22 because, 22 cats would have just, what's up, buddy?
Right. Hey, why am I getting a text right now? So it's so key, like to the point when I met you, when I met Dave is a genuine guy. Day one, I met him in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Right.
I met him at sports bar. It was a sports bar, right?
Right.
Yeah. I was terrible in pool.
Yeah.
I was terrible. But at the same time, this guy didn't know me, and he came to a function that I had.
Right.
It was just a genuine guy.
Okay, stop right there for a second. So y'all was at the bar, at the sports bar.
That sports bar.
Let me just ask you, did he buy you a drink?
No.
He's not a real friend. Don't give a props like that. How dare you?
Yo, I had to think about it.
And mind you, Kurt only drinks Sprite or ginger ale. He didn't get neither. So he's a great guy. I don't know how genuine he is.
Yes, he didn't allow me to drink. Friends don't let friends drink and drive.
Right.
So, but anyway, it's a good guy, man. And I'm not just saying this because he's right here.
Right.
He's showing a lot of love to actually, and I wanted to go back to him when he made phone calls to his family. He didn't want his family to know what was going on.
Right.
So he actually deviated from the conversation he wanted to have. That's hard.
Right. That's tough.
That's hard.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Wow, that's hard.
Now let me also just add on because when our listeners or viewers to misunderstand that we're talking about that there's no help out there. You have the USO, you have plenty of community entities that's out there. We're just talking about how community is us.
Right.
Community is the person. So even though these organizations are set up nonprofit, for profit, however, are there to help, it's still a priority. If you enjoy your freedoms in this country and like it or love it, whatever you feel in regards to what's going on with our political, state at this point, the actual person, that's actually out there doing whatever it is they need to do, however you perceive. The one thing I've always learned and known for a long time ago, outside of me being in 9/11, very few times that we have been quote unquote bombed in this country or attacked in this country, and where we know other places abroad that's constant in some places. So we are awarded certain luxuries regarding that, and that's because of the strength of our military might and the men and women who go over there and serve. So there are some entities. So I just wanted to make sure that our listeners know that there are some other places out there that do help. Military men and women.
And to the same question for you, as far as how do you feel about therapy as a man? You were involved in 9/11. Thank you for first of all.
For what? Let me stop. Everybody says that. I say that, man. Yeah. I do my job.
That's
done my job.
That's the humble side of this guy.
I do my job.
Yeah. That's how he always been. You know, I just do my job. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. But he was 9/11.
Right. But the interesting thing about that is that I was already about, I don't know, 10 years in my career by that time, or 9 or whatever it was. So the actual, just getting yourself together, getting focused, doing your job, which you already know what you're going into. You kind of just doing it, and you just go and take care of whatever it is you need, they ask of you to take care of. So you don't look at anything until afterwards. But fast forward past that, the greatest thing that happened to me outside of that is that I got, they made it mandatory that you had to go speak to someone or whatever the case may be. And over time, that didn't happen until years later for me. So I moved down here. And there's something about discovery. Discovery is like for yourself when you finally discover what's going on in your mind, why you acting a certain kind of way, why you're doing things. So it was important. I can say this, that when I talked to my therapist in regards to what was going on with me, it was about maybe one session talking about 9/11. You know what I mean? And then he started to delve into things of my past, my life. A couple of things that was going on, why, I was reacting certain kind of ways. And he peeled back a lot of layers that I just refused to. Again, the machismo. I ain't talking to nobody. Ain't nothing wrong with me. Well, wait a minute. Something wrong if you staying in the bed for 3 days? Right. So thank God that, I was able to get discovery, get an understanding of what's going on, treatment, not by way of medication, understanding what he called my triggers and things of that nature. So, I'm an advocate for it. I'm outspoken because it is, sometimes we bottle everything up. And so that was interesting that traumatic moment led to and segued into, my transformation as a man. I was in my 30s when I had to talk to him or whatever the case may be. So it was refreshing. So ever since then, I've been like, yo, listen, I know what's going on. Because a lot of times people don't know what's going on. And you hear these different terms being thrown out and conditions or whatever. You're like, nah, I don't suffer from that. I don't have that. I don't and these things are temporary. And once you get a hold on them, once you get a chance to accept them and understand them, you operate differently. And I love talking about it now because, most of the people who see me will never know that I went through, some therapy or whatever the case may be. But it was wonderful because, again, I make references faith-wise. I would have never just got up myself and went and did it. But somebody else has a different answer. Somebody else is saying, no, we're going to work the what,
And that's the type of person that, that I see on a daily basis. This person that is, transparent and, you communicate. You're able to articulate what's going on. And it helps you. Go to you, David. No, seriously. It's really key. My dad called me when I was in college. Well, actually, I called my mom. I called my mom. I was having this crazy headache. Like, it was like beyond me. My mom told me, she said, son, you never show emotion.
Yeah.
And my dad got the phone. I can only see him grabbing the phone. So he grabbed the phone. Son.
Right.
It gotta be your pressure. You're taking on too much.
Right.
So I went and actually got I went to see, he was right. I was taking so much in and I didn't know how to let it out. I didn't know how to let it out. And just holding so much in, man, you're still a man. If you just show your emotion, it's okay. It's okay. And that's one of the reasons that, I enjoy what we're doing right now. Where we communicate like this all the time.
All the time.
And it's fun to actually help, not just men, but women, children. In every aspect,
And I think too, when you do talk about the things that you've experienced, that you've been through, you realize that you really don't need to bury those things.
Right.
You know, because it even though in like the things that I experienced and the traumatic experiences and like I'll never forget it. But talking to a psychiatrist and therapy and everything, it's taught me how to deal with it.
Right.
It's taught me how to live with it. And I think that's what's going on. Substance abuse, they haven't learned how to deal with it yet.
Right.
And what's interesting is that is when you in the military, you deal with it better for some reason. I don't even understand the psyche behind that. It's like you deal with it better for some reason. And then once you're no longer in the military, it's like, I don't know, I guess everything like kind of just slows down and you have time to kind of reflect on the things that you've been through. And for some people, it's kind of like that little cloud with you know, that come over you, and you know, you just you know.
So what you saying that? So we have a lot of families, you know, with their child, their loved ones, you know, that's been deployed. So that security, you being a soldier, and you know family at home thinking about you or what have you. What type of relief can you give for these families about the soldiers that are actually deployed?
I mean, one thing that I can say is if you can prepare, then you need to. Um, so it's almost like having a like at home. I have a what I call a bug out bag, just in case if they ever do push the button. You know, I got a bag ready to go. You know, so I mean, you just have to always be prepared if you can. Maybe the first time that it happens, you're not prepared, but definitely if you're going to make a career out of it, the second time you need to be prepared. So I was reading a couple of articles. They were interviewing some of the soldiers, and the guy was like, I have my bag in the garage so that when I get that call, I'm ready to go." So if it's one thing that I could tell families is that try to prepare as best as you can for have things in place, have family in place that could possibly come and stay with you maybe for that first 2 to 3 weeks to help you transition into being gone for so long. Because what a lot of people don't understand is, and I figured it out because I'm just that type of person, but like in the army, you could be on a deployment for 15 months.
Right.
I've known, this is no lie, I've known guys when they leave home, their wife is pregnant. They'll come back home on leave. The wife will have the baby, okay, and then they'll come back again, get her pregnant again, and by the time they come back, she got about 3 months before she have another baby. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So 15 months is a long time to be separated from somebody. So you gotta have things in place.
Shouts out to both of my brothers who are veterans, Sice and Maurice, both of them in the Navy.
Okay.
And definitely my brother Maurice was deployed overseas many years ago. I know when we had issues with Libya, he was out there quite some years ago. And it changes you. I mean, you really, you know, there's a difference. You feel a sense of pride.
You saying that's the brother. You're feeling that. You're feeling the separation.
Yeah. As a young brother, because he was closer to me, you know, helped raise me as well. So when he, you know, we're 5 years apart. So when he got, you know, left and went deployed, it's just one of those things that you kind of, as a kid, you try to wrap your head around, you know, what's going on.
Right.
You know, it was a little different, as I would suggest that, you know, if he was going to college or something like that, you know he's doing. But military is different. You know, at any given time, something can go on. And that pressure, that stress from time to time that people feel, I don't think it gets enough, you know, credence. It doesn't get enough, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't give enough respect or even understanding.
Right.
You know, so and we've become, I think, at times desensitized.
Right.
You know, to that whole thing. You know, and you know, it's just one of those things that you got to kind of work through. And I was always interested on how, because I'm on the other side.
Right.
You know, I'm feeling this. You know, I'm on the other side, and you know, he's came home, everything went well, and so on. Thankfully, you know, didn't get any, but he was on the water, or you know, for months on end. On the carrier.
Right.
So like that stuff right there, you know, you just you get up, maybe you think it's beautiful, but you look in there, it's just water there.
That's
You look in there, just water there, no land, no for days, for months, and things of that. So it really is one of these things that we're stressing this episode here about how we as a community, we have to do more for our people in the military.
Right.
You know, we do regarding mental health.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily about giving a pass to anybody. It's about understanding.
And it is, man. I'll tell you, some of the happiest moments being deployed is getting a box from a loved one with something in it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I remember one time we had reached out to I think it was Nike. We reached out to Nike. We gave them the address where we was at because we didn't have any type of like nothing, like we just, you know what I'm saying, throwing rocks in the you know, in the sand.
Right.
So it's like, you know, to kind of alleviate some of the stress that we're under, like let's reach out to Nike. And we reached out to them, and they actually sent us like a box of like gloves, baseballs, baseball bats, footballs, shoes. I mean, all kind of stuff, man. And when we got that, that was like a morale booster, man. Everybody was just like, yo, you know, after we come back off this mission, let's you know, get some baseballs or do something, you know.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, you was happy about that?
Oh yeah, man.
I thought it was just listen. This was a story. And I thought it might have been you, okay? Because I heard that somebody was pissed that they didn't send no cricket gear, you know. So shouts out to cricket players. I just, you know, so I didn't. Anyway. But no, it's but that's another thing, you know. And again, there are, you know, nonprofit organizations don't want to say that nothing is being done.
Right.
You know, things are being done by a lot of companies and nonprofit organizations. But again, it's never enough.
Yes.
But
this is not the first or last time we're going to communicate about this. We're going to actually give those resources.
Right.
Right. Plug them in, but not to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
Keep going. You know, because you guys are educating me on, you know, first of all, your brother going to the military in your home.
Right.
You know, I can't imagine, you know, it's different from my big brother going to college.
Right.
Like you're saying, to your point.
Right.
You know, so I can't wrap my mind around it.
Yeah, well, it's emotions. I mean, you know, I cried every time he left, you know, whatever. So it's just emotions, and you deal with it, and you know, you just keep going on. So, but again, it is important that we continue to stress to our militaries. I want to look right into the camera and say, look, if you have issues, if you have things that's going on, don't be afraid to talk about them. Please seek the help. It's just something that's temporary you might be feeling. And you want to have that discovery. You want to find out what's going on with you so you can better cope and deal with it. And oftentimes we don't deal with it. And that's when it becomes a problem. That's when it becomes a problem for the family. That's when it becomes a burden. And no one wants to feel like that. And that's usually the snowball effect. You know, you hold it in. Someone's trying to get to you. They're getting frustrated. You're getting aggravated. And then there's a clash, you know, and then there's a deeper depression. There's a deeper misunderstanding, you know, and it snowballs and snowballs. And then you just try to find these outlets to try and cope. And it's never a situation where you cannot speak to someone. I don't care what faith you're under. I mean, there's pastors, there's you know, doctors, they're professionals, you know, and what I found, you know, talking to my friends is great. We talk amongst each other, and we talk, you know, deep things about life and so on and so forth, and I'm thankful for that. I appreciate that, and I have a whole group of friends who I share things with, but it was something about, you know, my therapist that he focused and keyed in on me, in that regard. There's a difference because we, as friends, we're going to have a biased opinion oftentimes. And that's, you know, I mean, a therapist would tell you that, and it's one of the things why you may go. A therapist's job, obviously, just from my experience, is to gather some information about you, you know, process it, and just let you know what's going on possibly about you, and then maybe give you some, you know, information on how you can help circumvent, you know, episodes or whatever's going on. But when you talk with friends about issues, whatever it is, their immediate thing at times is to try and fix it.
Right.
And it may be quick, and it may be something biased about, even if it's a situation regarding someone else, you go into, deferring that energy towards that person, furthering, their animosity towards them or whatever. Right. So I really have to encourage people, not just in the military, but when you're feeling something, you're not yourself. Right. That stigma, you're not crazy.
That's right.
We got to get off of that.
You're not less than.
You're not less than. Yeah. Right. Everybody needs an opportunity to kind of hit the reset button and get to understand some things about themselves. Right. And it comes in so many different ways and forms, and there's so many different ways in which you can seek help. Like I said, through religion, through faith-based organizations, nonprofit organizations that deal with things of the mind. And that's what we're working on here in this podcast, just getting information out and sharing our own personal things that could help some people, because this is one of the greatest things, because when I talk about it, again, no one would know. We do all as men. We do a good job of masking things. Right. But at the end of the day, everybody who knows me is, okay, that's Coach, man. He's just, he's a good person and so on and so forth. And it's not like I'm hiding. I'm out front with whatever has gone on with me. But I wanted to share that because sometimes people are afraid how people are going to look at them and judge them. Right. And start to come at them. But most people know me as you know me as I am. Right. So and if
you are right.
My man. Can I get a little bit of that? My man, okay. Well, actually, you said something, David. You said, what was the thing you said? You had to get a little bag. You got to get things set up just to go. What was that? You said a go bag?
Yeah, go bag.
A go bag.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I got to go put my Jameson and cigars in one area when I get home.
Right.
Wait a minute. I didn't mean to plug that. You might have to edit that. We ain't get paid. But in case something going down, Curry, what would you grab if you had to go bag beside the fishnet tank top you might have?
What would you put in your go bag?
What would you put in your go bag?
What's in your go bag?
You got two items. You got two items that you have to grab.
Yeah. I think, man, what would I grab?
Two items, Kurt.
I don't know. I don't know what I'd grab. Okay.
Well, one should be a pick. That's one.
I don't know what I'd grab.
David, what are the two things? Give me two things that you must have in your go bag. Let our listeners know that it's important to grab these two things in your go bag.
Oh, well, I got a lot of things in my go bag, but two things that I would say that would have to be in there would be a good book.
Okay.
Number one.
Yeah.
And my pistol.
Yeah.
That's in my go bag.
Listen, this is the guy that suggested that, hey, we got to have a team bonding at the range. I'm like,
right.
He said that last week.
Yes, he did.
So we know how you feel about this Second Amendment
right.
right.
What would be your go bag?
I already told you, baby.
No.
Well, look, I said a cigar.
Give a true answer.
Okay.
You definitely would not just have
a cigar and little libation.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
Geez, Curry, I'm stumped like you. No, but it would have to be some form of entertainment, which book. I mean, we can't say electronics because you're on the go. You don't know what's going on. It could be the apocalypse.
Right.
So your cell phone's only gonna last but so long.
Yes.
So we saw that Book of Eli. You need the book. In case the apocalypse. Yeah. So that with that being said, it would be the good book.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Because there's something about reading that book. You can always learn something new. Okay, how many times you read it, so that's a good thing.
It's gonna pull something out.
Right. Yeah. That would be one to make sure I have entertainment or a book, and the other, we're talking about non-essential, right? It's just something random that we would want to have.
What's up in your bag, man? It
could be
a block of cheese.
Don't sleep on a block of cheese. Because that's another episode. How that saved our whole mentality from not being hungry some nights. Block of cheese. Hold on. I wanted to say, how about a pen and pad? Is that two or is that one?
that could be one.
That'd be
That'd
one.
Pen
Pen
and
and pad.
pad.
The book.
Oh, poetry, right? For you, is that what it is?
For
pen and pad, it better be though.
Right.
Why you getting a pen and pad?
Cause I got bars, homie. We're not gonna go there. You know, we.
Thanks for coming out. God bless you. Listen.
Right.
So, listen. This is why you've been a coach,
right?
Okay. This is what we're gonna do. For these episodes, because I'm king of random.
Okay.
That. I'm king of random.
Okay.
So, what's the stipulations as far as timeouts? How many timeouts you get?
We get timeouts. Well, as far as in the game time. Well, you get 3 timeouts. Well, now you actually get 5, or at least when we was in high school, you get 3 full timeouts and 2 30-second timeouts.
Okay. So yeah. So we're gonna call timeout.
Okay.
On this podcast.
Okay.
Because this gives me my randomness. I go right. Sometimes, but so if I run out of timeouts, you can't give me a take.
All right. Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
All right. So that's what we're gonna do.
That's not actually part of the game, but I mean, you will get a tech if you call a timeout when you don't have it.
That's right.
But I'm following you. Come on.
Yeah. So with that being said, so your pen and pad.
Right.
And you're taking what else?
Taking the Bible.
I'm taking the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting book to read.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Shooter over here. So you taking the gun.
Right.
And what?
In a book. But wait, Kurt. You haven't answered.
I'm taking the Bible.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just taking the Bible.
What you taking, the LeBron James version?
I'm taking the Bible.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm gonna stick with.
And that's it. We had to allow 2 things. You don't want anything else? Water?
I mean,
you don't want nothing else? Toilet paper? Something?
I'll take take the Bible and some water.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. A go bag. Well, this came from a go bag.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm taking 2 waters.
Yeah. The military guys are always prepared. Always prepared. But this should make sure we continue to segue back to what we're doing with with this thing with the military. I know David, wanted to ask lastly, at least my last question. In his personal, again, we're going to be transparent as much as we can, but we're not bounded by any question at all. Were your kids part of the session, or did you feel need for the kids to be part of the session, or have they ever experienced anything that you think that they might have needed to talk to them? In fact, how old are they?
10, 9, 7, 5,
right,
3, 1.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, they're relatively young, so they've been young, but so they haven't been affected, as you didn't notice anything
just
profound.
Maybe my two oldest.
Right.
Just like my boy, he got up tonight when I was leaving.
Mm-hmm.
The other ones, the young ones, they really don't care.
They don't care, right? They don't really know. They don't really know much. Okay.
But my oldest son and daughter, anytime I go somewhere, Daddy, where you going? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They want to know, because they know. I can get that call.
Right.
I gotta go.
Right. And we haven't, lastly, I just wanted to, definitely, which, this has slipped us a little bit here. I know you touched on some things with your wife, and, I have military women out there that has husbands, like that pressure of maintaining alone, and we know single parents do it all the time. But knowing that pressure and how they have to keep their cool throughout that whole process when you have children. Yeah. That strength that they exhibit is amazing. Yeah. And they too, over time, are affected and afflicted with certain things that come along with deployment and that concern, that worry each day.
One thing that I think I know that really helps is you gotta have a very strong family, like a tight knit family. One thing that helped us was that my wife's mother actually moved from Texas, from Houston. She was living in Houston. She actually moved from Houston and Dallas twice to live in Fayetteville, and then finally the third time just like, I'm tired of this boy leaving. I'm just gonna buy me a house and move here.
Wow.
So you know that helped out,
Mm-hmm.
you know, tremendously.
Right.
Then another thing, when my brother and his wife actually got stationed at Fort Bragg, we were all there. Mm-hmm. And so, prime example, my brother and my sister-in-law actually got deployed at the same time. Mm-hmm. So my niece was supposed to go and live with her grandmother, but something came up. And so, you know, if I hadn't have been in Fayetteville, they wouldn't have had another option.
Another option, right.
And so it wasn't even like, it wasn't my brother. He was like, hey, Noonie got to come to the house. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what time you bringing her? You know, so it wasn't even a, you know, like, hey, I can't do it, or, you know, it's like, what time you bringing her, you know?
Right.
So just, you know, when you have military family, you really got to be there for them.
Right.
And sometimes it means doing things you got to go above and beyond sometimes. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And that's just what you have to do, man.
Right.
Yeah.
So in closing, we really appreciate you. Hey, I love you guys. You know, I appreciate everything you're doing.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I want you guys to stay tuned with Off the Bench Global. Make sure you subscribe and hit the like button.
That like button.
And we definitely pay attention to the comments. You know, positive things that we're actually moving towards, and we learn off each other. You know, we grow together. Have a good one.
Peace.
Peace.